Welcome to our explainer on the really fascinating world of Indian environmental law. Now, this isn't just going to be a dry list of rules and regulations. No, this is a story about a fundamental challenge. How does a country like India grow and develop without, destroying the very planet it's built on? Let's dive in. And that really is the big question, isn't it? Do we have to pick one? A booming economy or a healthy environment? Or is there maybe a way to have both? For decades, this has been at the heart of Indian law, and the journey to find that balance is, honestly, pretty incredible. So, let's get into it. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the big ideas, the guiding principles behind all these laws. Then, we'll see how those ideas were tested in some major court battles. After that, we'll get into the specifics, the rule books for water and air, and even the hidden threat of noise pollution. And finally, we'll talk about what it all means for you and me. Right. Before we jump into the nitty-gritty of specific sections and acts, you gotta understand the philosophy, the core ideas that everything else is built on. Think of these as the North Star for every single environmental decision made in India. The absolute heart of all this is one key concept: sustainable development. Now, this isn't about stopping progress in its tracks, not at all. It's about being smart. It's this really profound idea that, hey, we can take care of our needs today, but we can't do it by bankrupting the future for our kids and grandkids. It's about balance. Okay, this one is a real game changer. It's called the precautionary principle, and it totally flips the usual legal script. It's basically the legal version of better safe than sorry. So instead of waiting around for 100% conclusive scientific proof that something is causing harm, which could take years, this principle says, if there's a credible threat, you act now. And here's the kicker. The responsibility, the burden of proof, is on the company or the developer to prove their project is safe. It's not on the public to prove it's dangerous. It's all about preventing a mess, not just cleaning one up. And this next one, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The polluter pays principle. The idea is incredibly simple but so powerful. If you cause environmental damage, you are on the hook for it. You have to pay to fix the damage, and you have to compensate the people who are harmed. It makes environmental responsibility a real bottom-line cost for industries. So these are some great ideas, right? But how did they go from being just ideas to being actual hard law with real consequences? Well, that happened in the courtroom. Let's look at the landmark cases that really gave these principles their teeth. Our first stop is Tamil Nadu, back in 1996. This is where a group of regular citizens decided they'd had enough. They took on a massive industry, and the legal fight that followed would literally change Indian environmental law forever. Okay, so the situation in Vellore was bad. I mean, really bad. You had hundreds of tanneries, a huge part of India's export economy, just dumping untreated industrial waste directly into the Palar River. We're talking about a toxic cocktail of chemicals, like chromium, poisoning the main water source for thousands of people. And this wasn't just some one-off accident. This had been going on for over a decade. It was the classic showdown: jobs and economic growth on one side, and the right to clean water and a healthy environment on the other. And then came the verdict. This was absolutely monumental. The Supreme Court didn't just side with the citizens. It went a step further and declared that the precautionary principle and the polluter pays principle are officially part of Indian law. They're not just suggestions, they are essential. This case is maybe the best example of how the courts stepped in to define what environmental protection really means in India. So the Vellore case established who pays for the damage. But what about who owns our natural resources in the first place? Who owns a river, a forest? Well, there's another powerful idea for that called the public trust doctrine. It's an ancient concept, and it says that some resources are so vital that they belong to everyone. The government doesn't own them, it acts as a trustee, and its job is to protect them for all of us and for future generations. The perfect example of this is the Kamal Nath case. Here, you had a private motel that had built on the bank of the river Bias and was actually trying to change the river's flow. The Supreme Court stepped in and invoked the public trust doctrine. The ruling was crystal clear. The river belongs to the public. The government has no right to lease or sell public resources like that for private commercial use. Okay, so we've got the big ideas, the guiding principles established by the courts. Now let's look at the actual rulebook, the specific laws that give the authorities the power to enforce all this. First up is the Water Act from 1974. This was really a trailblazing law for its time. Its whole purpose is to maintain and restore the health of our country's water, from rivers and lakes to groundwater. Now, what's really interesting about the Water Act is how incredibly detailed it is. Take Section 21. It lays out the exact procedure for how to collect a sample of polluted water to use as evidence. You think that's simple, right? Wrong. The procedure has to be followed perfectly. In fact, in the Delhi Bottling Co. case, a major pollution case got thrown out of court simply because the officials didn't follow these 5 steps to the letter. It just goes to show you, in environmental law, how you do things can be just as important as what you do. Now, let's talk about the air we breathe. After a big UN conference on the environment in 1972, India passed the Air Act in 1981. This law gives the pollution control boards the authority they need to tackle air pollution head-on. And this act has some serious power. The boards can declare entire regions as air pollution control areas. They can stop certain industries from operating, and they can set strict emission standards. And this isn't just theoretical stuff. This act was used to literally save the Taj Mahal. In the famous Taj trapezium case, the monument's beautiful white marble was turning yellow from industrial pollution. Using these exact powers, the Supreme Court forced hundreds of factories in the area to either switch to cleaner fuel or move out. A direct, powerful result of this law. Of course, pollution isn't just stuff you can see or smell. What about the stuff you hear? Noise is a huge environmental issue, and yep, there are specific laws to deal with it. So these are the noise pollution rules, and they get super specific. They lay out the exact decibel limits, that's just how we measure sound, for different areas. So check this out. In a residential area, the limit is 55 decibels during the day, which is about the level of a normal conversation. But at night, it drops all the way down to 45 decibels, which is much quieter. And then you have silence zones, like around hospitals, where the rules are even stricter. And this is where things get really complex and interesting, because the courts have had to balance different fundamental rights. In one major case, the use of loudspeakers for the azan, or the Islamic call to prayer, was challenged under these noise rules. The court had to weigh religious freedom against the right to a quiet environment. And their ruling was very careful. They said that while prayer itself is an essential part of religion, using a loudspeaker is a modern technology, not an essential part. So they upheld the noise restrictions, saying the right to a peaceful life free from noise is also a fundamental right. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here, from the big guiding principles to the specific rules on the books. So let's zoom out and put it all together. What we've really been looking at is a powerful toolkit. Indian law has created this really robust system for environmental protection. It starts with a strong moral foundation, those core principles, and then it gives real practical tools through acts that empower both the government and, importantly, citizens to take action. So, if you're going to remember just a few things from all this, here they are. 1. There are big, core principles guiding everything. 2. It was the courts through landmark cases that made these principles the law of the land. 3. Specific acts for water, air, and noise give us the tools to actually enforce these ideas. And 4, and this is maybe the most important, this whole system gives regular citizens like you and me the power to stand up and hold polluters accountable. So, India has this incredibly detailed and forward-thinking legal framework in place. The laws are there. But, having laws on the books is one thing. The real question we have to ask ourselves is it enough? Is the enforcement of these laws strong enough to actually protect our future? That's the question we're all left with. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.